In this video, we're going to take you on a full one-day tour of Lake Como, which includes Lake Como, Italy, and a journey through Switzerland, and then our way back to Milan.
So when we were booking our trip, we actually wanted to stay in Como or like one of the cities around the lake, and we noticed the prices were just way too high for us. So we decided to stay in Milan overnight, but take a full day trip to Lake Como.
Because it's only about an hour train ride from Milan all the way to the town of Como, and is fairly cheap, costing around $7 for a one-way train ticket.
Mm-hmm. We noticed the prices of the ferry tickets and all of the food costs and everything like that, and just decided to book a whole tour. That way we could get all the information we wanted.
From a local.
From a local, yeah. And then also spend a whole day with them.
And that also included, like I said, that whole entire trip to Lugano in Switzerland, which we would have never done had we had not booked this trip.
And that was actually both of our favorite parts.
It was literally the highlight of the whole entire tour. Although Lake Como was absolutely stunning and gorgeous and beautiful, Lugano was a very inspirational
just different
city.
Vibe.
Different
yeah.
vibes.
Different vibe
Clean.
that we both really liked, yeah.
We woke up bright and early and caught a train from Milan to Como. The train ride was about 50 minutes and brought us right to the port in Como. This is where our tour began. We were greeted by our tour guide and were told we were going to spend the next 10 hours together, which was so much fun, and we got to experience all of Lake Como. We were given a little headset so we could hear our tour guide at all times telling us every detail. As we got on the ferry, we couldn't help but look at the view. It was absolutely amazing. Lake Como is a bucket list place to go and so beautiful. Just leaving the port, you'll notice this huge sculpture. It's called Life Electric, made by Daniel Labinsko in honor of Alessandro Volta, who actually created the electric tension that happens between two batteries. We also saw some crazy people jumping off a bridge into the lake. The thing I didn't know about Lake Como is that it's actually freezing. People have actually passed away because of the thermal shock that you can get from going into Lake Como. Natives there do not typically swim in the water, but I guess all of the tourists and vacationers do tend to go for a dip. The massive yellow house you see right here in the background was actually rented by Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce while she was on tour this year. It was so interesting finding out about all the famous movies that were filmed here. Most of the actors and other celebrities ended up loving the location so much they actually bought property on Lake Como. Celebrities including George Clooney, John Legend, Madonna, and so many more. George Clooney spent $12 million on his Lake Como villa 20 years ago. I can't imagine what the prices are now. Some of the famous films included Ocean's 11, Versace, House of Gucci, as well as James Bond. As part of our tour, we stopped in Bellagio for some lunch. Our lunch included octopus and risotto with some perch fish. The thing to note about Bellagio was this area was definitely targeted to tourists because it was very expensive. So keep that in mind if you're planning on staying. Anywhere on Lake Como, Bellagio is definitely up there. For the next part of our tour, we hopped on a bus that took us to Lugano, which is the other side of Lake Como, part of Switzerland. I have to give our bus driver props because driving this massive bus was so hard on these winding roads. I was having a panic attack for sure. One thing we were really excited to see was the replica of the Last Supper painted by Bernardino Luini, which was Leonardo da Vinci's star student. After that, we hopped back on the bus, which took us to Como, and that ended our tour. We hopped on the train that took us from Como back to Milan, and that was the end of our day. Places that we went on our tour today, I would definitely say my top favorite are Lugano and Como. Bellagio was a little bit too crowded and too touristy for me, but it was definitely a cool experience, so I do recommend stopping there, but maybe not staying overnight or having too many meals there. It could break the bank.
Well, in today's video, we're going to be taking our finances for a full day tour of Lake Como, and this includes a $255 tour for myself and Georgiana on a private boat that took us from Como all the way around the entire lake to different scenes and different villas, as well as going all the way up north to Switzerland in a beautiful city called Lugano, and then all the way traveling back to the town of Como, where we headed back on our train and headed back for Milan, which we had stayed the night. So without further ado, let's take a look at some of the finances behind that. That tour, again, costing $255 for basically a full day, 12-hour excursion, is just a small price to pay for what is truly included in it. One, you meet so many great people. Two, you learn so much about history, about where you are, what's going on, and just see so many different things. Like, I would have probably never been to the city of Lugano in Switzerland if I did not take this tour of Lake Como. Aside from that, that was very, very fun, and of course, seeing all the different villas and just learning so much about them it's a small price tag to pay, trust me. With that being said, food was not included on that trip, nor the transportation from Milan getting to Como, as well as from Como back to Milan. So that was fall on us, which I will include in our total excursion to Lake Como throughout the day. Through Lake Como, we did grab some breakfast, which was very cheap. I think it was like a croissant and some coffee. Was only like $5. That's pretty extraordinary, right? Very, very lucky it was that cheap, right? In Lugano, I picked up some Swiss chocolate, and that cost me around $12, but A1 and phenomenal, as well as some water and Coca-Cola for a grand total of almost $8 there. One expensive meal that we did have was really good food. It was like a risotto with fish, and we had like salad, whole kind of spiel. That was at the Bellagio. I guess it was the original or real Bellagio in Lake Como. It's an entire villa. I will say this, from our experience of traveling to Lake Como, Bellagio was my least favorite. It's just not my forte. It's just super crowded, all tourists. It's not just something I want to see. It's not like the local mentality that I personally enjoy more. It's literally all tourists, and you're paying like tourist prices. It's a tourist villa. Regardless, the meal was pretty fantastic, $65 on that one, bringing you a total of about $90 for food on our day trip to Lake Como. And this did not include dinner, which we actually had in Milan, which was around another $30 or so. So give or take around $100 or so. And the transportation from the train line from Milan to Como was around $20. It was extremely affordable. And then, like I mentioned earlier, the guided tour was $255, bringing you a total excursion day to Lake Como that lasted about 12 hours for $364. Now, this included all transportation encompassed in it, food, and the whole luxurious trip of the beautiful Lake of Como. My favorite part being where we got to see Anakin Skywalker marry Padme back in the movie Revenge of the Sith. Of course, that's coming from a huge Star Wars fan.